The Shadow in the Mirror. In the quiet suburb of Eldridge Hollow, where maple trees lined the streets and children played until the streetlights flickered on, no one suspected that evil had taken root. It started with whispers, rumors of a man who walked the night, his footsteps silent as a ghost's breath. They called him the Mirror Killer, though no one knew why until it was too late. His story, pieced together from the fragments of survivors' tales and blood-stained diaries, began long before the first body was found. His name was Elias Crowe, or at least that's what he claimed when he moved into the old Victorian house on Elm Street in the fall of 1987. Elias was unremarkable at first glance. Mid-40s with salt-and-pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a perpetual smile that never quite reached his eyes. He worked as an antique dealer, specializing in mirrors, ornate, gilded frames from forgotten eras, each one polished to a gleam that reflected the world with unnatural clarity. Neighbors waved hello as he unloaded crates from his battered van, but they never invited him over. There was something off about him, a subtle wrongness, like a photograph slightly out of focus. Elias's obsession with mirrors stemmed from his childhood. Born in a remote cabin in the Appalachian Mountains, he was raised by a mother who believed in old superstitions. "Mirrors are doorways," she would whisper, covering every reflective surface in their home with black cloth after dusk. They let the shadows in. Young Elias, curious and defiant, would peel back the cloths at night, staring into his own reflection until it seemed to move independently. One stormy evening, when he was 12, he swore he saw a figure behind him in the glass. A tall, emaciated man with hollow eyes and a grin like a slashed throat. His mother found him screaming, but when she looked, there was nothing. That night, she vanished without a trace. The police called it a runaway, but Elias knew better. The shadow had taken her. Years passed, and Elias buried the memory, but the mirrors called to him. He collected them obsessively, filling his house with dozens. Full-length cheval mirrors in the hallway, convex fisheye ones in the corners, even tiny pocket mirrors hidden in drawers. Each one, he believed, held a piece of that shadow from his childhood. And as he aged, the reflections began to change. In the dead of night, he'd catch glimpses of movement, fingers reaching from the glass, eyes blinking when his weren't. He started talking to them, whispering secrets, and soon the shadows whispered back. They hungered, they said. They needed flesh to cross over. The first victim was Margaret Hale, a kindly widow who lived next door. She had knocked on Elias's door one evening, offering a plate of homemade cookies as a welcome gift. Elias invited her in, his smile widening. As they chatted in the parlor, surrounded by mirrors that caught the fading sunset, Margaret glanced at her reflection and frowned. "That's odd," she murmured. "I look different." Elias chuckled softly. "Mirrors never lie, my dear. They show what's really there." That night, as Margaret slept in her own bed, she awoke to a scratching sound, like nails on glass. Groggy, she turned on her lamp and stared at her bedroom mirror. Her reflection stared back, but it wasn't moving with her. It smiled, teeth too sharp, eyes too dark. Before she could scream, the glass rippled like water, and a hand emerged, cold and clammy, wrapping around her throat. The police found her the next morning, her body twisted unnaturally, her eyes wide in terror, and shards of broken mirror embedded in her skin. No signs of forced entry, just a single antique mirror propped against her wall, one she didn't remember owning. The town buzzed with speculation.
But Elias went unnoticed. He attended the funeral, offering condolences with that same empty smile. In his basement, surrounded by his collection, he polished a new mirror, the one from Margaret's house. As he worked, the shadow in the glass nodded approvingly. "More," it hissed. "Bring us more."
The killings escalated. Next was Tommy Reed, a high school jock who bullied the wrong person. Tommy had mocked Elias at the local diner, calling him the creepy mirror guy. That night, as Tommy drove home from a party, his rearview mirror fogged up despite the clear weather. He wiped it, but instead of his face, he saw Elias's, grinning from the back seat. Tommy swerved, crashing into a tree. When rescuers arrived, they found him decapitated, his head staring blankly from the dashboard, reflected infinitely in the shattered mirrors of the car. Again, an antique mirror was found nearby, untouched amid the wreckage. Whispers turned to fear. The local paper ran headlines, "Mirror murders grip Eldridge Hollow." People started covering their mirrors at night, just like Elias's mother had. But it didn't help. The shadow had tasted blood and grown bolder. It could slip through any reflection now, puddles on the street, shop windows, even the gloss of a polished doorknob. Elias reveled in it. By day, he was the mild-mannered antique dealer, selling his cursed wares to unsuspecting customers. By night, he selected victims, marking them with a glance in one of his mirrors. The shadows did the rest. There was Sarah Klein, the librarian, who was found drowned in her bathtub, her face pressed against the water surface as if staring into a mirror, lungs filled with glass-like shards. Then Dr. Harlan, the town psychiatrist, who had tried to counsel Elias about his delusions. Harlan's body was discovered in his office, his throat slit with a fragment of his own vanity mirror, his notes scattered. Patient believes mirrors are portals to another realm. Possible schizophrenia? As the body count rose to 7, the police finally turned their eyes to Elias. Detective Laura Voss, a sharp-witted outsider assigned to the case, noticed the pattern. Each victim had recently visited Elias's shop or home. She paid him a visit, posing as a customer interested in an antique dresser mirror. Elias welcomed her, his eyes gleaming. "This one is special," he said, unveiling a massive floor mirror with intricate carvings of twisted faces. "It shows the truth behind the facade." Laura felt a chill as she gazed into it. Her reflection looked back, but something was wrong. The background shifted subtly, shadows lengthening. She backed away, thanking him politely, but that night, the nightmares began. In her dreams, she saw the mirror in her hotel room and hands reaching out. She woke sweating, checking every reflective surface. Determined, Laura returned with a warrant. She and her partner, Officer Reyes, stormed the house at dawn. The place was a labyrinth of mirrors, hundreds lining walls, ceilings, even floors. Every step echoed with distorted reflections. "Elias Crowe, come out!" Laura shouted. From the basement, a laugh echoed, low and guttural, not quite human. They descended the creaky stairs, flashlights cutting through the gloom. Elias stood in the center, surrounded by his collection, his eyes gleaming by the pale glow of the mirrors. "This one is special," he said, whispering. "You're too late. They're already here." Reyes glanced at a nearby mirror and froze. His reflection was moving independently, raising a gun to its own head. "What the—" Before he could finish, a shadow burst from the glass, coalescing into a solid form, tall, emaciated, with hollow eyes. It lunged, claws raking across Reyes's chest. He screamed as blood sprayed, his body crumbling.
Laura fired her weapon, bullets shattering mirrors in explosions of glass. Elias laughed maniacally. "You can't kill what's already dead!" Shadows poured from the broken frames, swarming like smoke. Laura backed up, her heart pounding. In the chaos, she spotted Elias's own reflection in an intact mirror. It wasn't him. It was the Shadow Man from his childhood, wearing Elias's skin like a suit. Desperate, Laura grabbed a shard of broken glass and plunged it into Elias's chest. He gasped, blood bubbling from his lips, but as he fell, the shadows retreated, slithering back into the remaining mirrors. The house fell silent. Laura escaped, but the nightmare didn't end. The police sealed the house, but reports trickled in, neighbors seeing figures in their windows at night, children waking to scratches on their mirrors. Laura herself couldn't look at reflections anymore. She covered everyone in her home, but sometimes, in the corner of her eye, she'd catch a glimpse, a grin, a hollow eye. Years later, the house on Elm Street stood abandoned, its windows boarded. But urban explorers whispered of a challenge: spend the night and survive the mirrors. Few tried. Those who did were never the same. One survivor, a young filmmaker, captured footage before vanishing. In the basement, amid the dust-covered frames, a single mirror remained unbroken, and in it, Elias Crowe's face stared out, smiling, waiting for the next soul to gaze too long. The mirror killer wasn't dead. He was everywhere, in every reflection, hungry for more. So next time you pass a mirror in the dark, don't look too closely, because if you do, you might see him looking back. And once he sees you, he never lets go. Years had passed since that fateful dawn in Eldridge Hollow, but for Detective Laura Voss, time was a fractured mirror, sharp edges that cut into her every waking moment. She had left the town behind, transferring to a bustling precinct in Chicago, where the skyscrapers pierced the sky like accusatory fingers, and the anonymity of the city promised forgetfulness. But forgetting was a luxury the shadows denied her. The official report labeled the mirror killer case as closed. Elias Crowe, deceased from a self-inflicted wound, or so they spun it. His house demolished, the mirrors shattered and buried in an unmarked landfill. Laura knew better. The shadows weren't buried. They lingered, patient and insidious, waiting in every gleam. At first, the haunting was subtle, like a whisper in a crowded room. Laura avoided mirrors religiously. Her apartment bathroom had a curtain over the sink, her makeup done by feel in dim light. She pawned her rearview mirror for a dashboard camera, claiming it was for safety. Colleagues joked about her quirks, calling her the vampire detective because she never checked her reflection. But in the quiet hours, when the city hummed with distant sirens, she'd catch glimpses, a flicker in a polished doorknob, a distorted face in a rain-slicked window. It was always him, Elias, or whatever wore his skin, smiling that empty smile. The nightmares started small. She'd dream of the basement, the mirrors multiplying like cancer cells, each one birthing a shadow that clawed at her. In the dreams, Reyes was there, his chest a gaping wound, begging her why she hadn't saved him. She'd wake gasping, her sheets soaked in sweat, and for a split second, she'd see it in the glass of her water cup on the nightstand, a hand reaching out. She'd smash the cup, cut her feet on the shards, and spend the night in the ER, lying about a clumsy accident. But the shadows grew bolder. One winter evening, as snow blanketed Chicago in a deceptive peace, Laura worked late on a mundane robbery case. The precinct was empty, save for the hum of fluorescent lights. She stepped into the restroom, forgetting her rule in her exhaustion. The mirror above the sink was fogged from a recent wash, but as she wiped it clear, her reflection didn't match. Her eyes in the glass were hollow, ringed with bruises that weren't there. She blinked, and the reflection blinked back, too slowly. A grin spread across its face, teeth elongating into points. "You can't hide," it whispered, voice like cracking ice. Laura stumbled back, heart thundering, and fled the building. The next day, the mirror was shattered, blamed on vandals, but she knew. Paranoia set in like rot. Laura started seeing patterns everywhere. A suspect's watch face reflected a face that wasn't his. A puddle on the sidewalk showed Elias standing behind her, his hand on her shoulder. She began carrying a small hammer in her purse, smashing any reflection that felt wrong. Her partner, a grizzled vet named Ramirez, pulled her aside one day. "Laura, you're scaring the rookies. What's eating you?" She tried to laugh it off, but that night, alone in her apartment, she heard the scratching, faint, persistent, like nails on glass.
Desperate for answers, Laura delved into the occult. She scoured dusty bookstores and online forums, piecing together lore about specularii, ancient entities that dwelled in reflections, feeding on fear. One text, a crumbling tome from the 17th century, described them as echoes of the damned, able to cross over when a host weakened. Elias had been their vessel, but in killing him, Laura had become the new anchor. The book warned, "To gaze upon them is to invite them in. To shatter their door is to splinter your soul." She experimented. In a fit of madness, she set up a camera in her living room facing a covered mirror. At midnight, she unveiled it and stared, recording everything. The footage later showed nothing amiss at first, but frame by frame her reflection lagged, then diverged. While Laura sat still, the mirror version stood, approached the glass, pressed its palms against it. The audio picked up whispers. "Join us, Laura. See the truth." She destroyed the camera, but the video file wouldn't delete. It spread to her phone, her laptop, popping up unbidden. The hauntings escalated into terror. Friends drifted away as Laura became reclusive, muttering about eyes in the glass. One night, her ex-lover, Alex, showed up unannounced, concerned after weeks of unanswered calls. They argued in the kitchen, and in the heat of it, Alex glanced at the toaster's chrome surface. His eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" Before Laura could react, a shadow erupted from the reflection, tendrils of darkness wrapping around Alex's neck. He choked, veins bulging, as Laura grabbed her hammer and smashed the toaster. Alex collapsed, gasping but alive. He left that night, calling her crazy, but not before whispering, "It looked like you, Laura, but wrong." Isolation fed the shadows. Laura quit the force, claiming burnout, and holed up in a remote cabin in the Wisconsin woods. No mirrors, no polished surfaces, just matte walls and fabric-covered windows. But even there, they found her. In the still lake nearby, on a moonlit night, she saw it. Her reflection rippling, then solidifying into Elias's form, beckoning. She threw rocks, disturbing the water, but the next morning, footprints circled the cabin, wet, impossible prints that led to her door. The breaking point came during a storm. Thunder rattled the cabin as Laura huddled by the fire, reading the old tome by flashlight. A gust blew open a window, rain splattering in. In the pooling water on the floor, a reflection formed, not of the room, but of the basement in Eldridge Hollow.
Shadows swarmed, and from the puddle a hand emerged, real, flesh and bone, cold fingers grasping her ankle. She screamed, kicking free, and poured salt around the cabin as the book instructed. But the whispers grew louder. "You're one of us now. Shatter yourself." In her delirium, Laura realized the truth. The shadows had embedded in her during the final confrontation. Every time she avoided a mirror, she denied them entry, but they festered inside, twisting her mind. She saw it in fleeting glimpses, her shadow on the wall moving when she didn't, her eyes in photos looking back with hunger. One dawn, as the storm cleared, Laura made her choice. She drove back to Eldridge Hollow, to the site where the house once stood, now an overgrown lot. Armed with a sledgehammer and gasoline, she dug up the buried mirrors, fragments glinting in the sun. As she smashed them, shadows wailed, coiling around her. The final piece, the unbroken one from the legend, showed not her face, but a multitude. Victims, Elias, the ancient entity. "Free us," it begged.
Laura doused it in gasoline and lit the match. Flames roared, and with them a searing pain in her chest. As the mirror melted, the shadows fled into her, a final invasion. She collapsed, vision blurring. They found her body days later, face peaceful, but her eyes wide open, reflecting nothing but endless darkness. The coroner noted odd details, shards embedded in her skin, as if she'd clawed them in herself. And in every photo of the scene, a faint figure lingered in the background, smiling. The haunting didn't end with Laura. Those who investigated her death started avoiding mirrors. Whispers spread anew. The shadows were free, seeking new hosts. And in quiet suburbs across the country, people began waking to scratches on glass, wondering if it was just the wind or something gazing back.